Have you ever really stopped to think about what's behind the meat on your plate? Today, we're going to walk through a really powerful moral argument about meat consumption, pulling directly from our source material. Now, the goal here isn't to tell you what to believe, but to really follow the logic of this one particular case. So, let's dive right in. The entire argument really boils down to this one simple question. Why do we eat meat? The source material asks us to think about whether it's actually for survival, the way it was for our ancestors, or if maybe it's turned into something else entirely, just a habit. And here it is, the core idea from the source. For most of us living in the world we live in today with all kinds of food options everywhere, well, eating meat isn't really about survival anymore. It's a preference. It's become a choice. And according to this argument, every single one of those choices carries some moral weight. Okay, so if it's a choice, then what are the consequences of that choice? This is where the source starts to build its case, based on what it calls erdrukkenden fakten, which translates to overwhelming facts that it argues we really have to face. What's so interesting here is how the source presents these things. They aren't treated like separate issues. Instead, it's presented as this single, interconnected list of consequences. The argument is that you can't really talk about one of these without acknowledging all the others. So let's start where the argument begins, with the animals. The very first price the source asks us to look at is the one paid by the animals themselves. This is really the bedrock of the whole ethical argument. The argument doesn't kick off with some complex philosophy. It starts with a number that's so big it's actually hard to picture. Billions. The source uses the staggering figure to ground the whole discussion in the massive scale of the lives that are involved, year after year. And this is a really, really crucial point in the argument. The source makes it clear these aren't just products or units. It uses this specific German phrase, fühlenden Lebewesen, which means sentient beings, to really drive home its core claim that these are creatures capable of feeling and therefore of suffering. So from the cost to animals, the argument kind of zooms out to the toll on the entire planet. The source directly connects this one industry to some pretty widespread environmental damage. According to the source material, the ecological impact is like a triple threat. First, there's the physical space, ecosystems being destroyed for farmland. Then there's the chemical impact, the poisoning of soils and water. And finally, the atmospheric cost, the burden on our climate. And it doesn't stop with the planet. The argument then brings it right back home, to us, to people. According to the source, this human toll actually hits two different groups, the people who eat the meat and the people who have to produce it. This slide really lays out the two sides of that human cost. For consumers, the source points to gesundheitliche Risiken, health risks. But for the workers in the industry, it highlights something that's often completely overlooked, psychische Traumata, or psychological trauma. The claim here is pretty powerful, that the system harms people at both ends of the supply chain. Okay, so after laying out all these facts, the impact on animals, on the planet, on people, the source makes a pivot. It shifts from just presenting problems to framing our role in all of this as a matter of conscious choice. And it all comes down to this really simple but, profound idea from the source. Every meal is a choice. That one little sentence completely transforms a daily routine into a recurring moral decision, a chance to line up our actions with what we say we value. So what exactly is this choice? Well, the text lays it out in pretty stark terms. Path number 1 is to continue supporting the system it's just described. Path number 2 is to choose what it calls a sustainable plant-based alternative. Now this is a fascinating way to reframe it. Usually when we think about giving something up, we see it as a sacrifice. That's Verzicht in German. But the source argues the complete opposite. It claims that making this choice isn't a loss. It's actually a Gewinn. It's a gain. So what is it that you gain? According to the source, it's 3 big things. Mitgefühl, which is compassion, Gesundheit, or health, and ökologisches Verantwortungsbewusstsein. That's a great German word that basically means having a sense of ecological responsibility. The argument is, you're not losing something, you're actually gaining a life that's more aligned with these values. And this is what brings the whole argument full circle. The source concludes that this very personal decision becomes a way to actively contribute to solving the exact problems we saw at the beginning. It's framed not just as a choice about diet, but as a direct way to engage with some of the world's biggest challenges. So, the crucial question the source leaves us with is this one. It's asking us to consider whether a simple daily act, the choice of what we eat, could actually be one of the most direct ways for any of us to contribute to solving some of the biggest challenges we face today. It's a pretty powerful thought to end on.